Hi, welcome to Winedown Wednesday with Kecia. Today's wine is Menage a Trois, and I've had this wine before. I just had two bottles of it, and I decided to finish the second one tonight. And of course, you know this wine is very sweet. It's a red blend. Of course, you can purchase it at my favorite store, which is Total Wine. And like I said before, can someone please tell Total Wine to give me some kind of sponsorship because every week I'm promoting these people. So, so let's get them on board. We're trying to sponsor me some wines here. And this is a reasonable wine. The wine is about $10. And you can also purchase it at Rouse's. Target even has it. Target has an excellent wine selection as well.
So
And
does it make you want to have a threesome though?
does it make you want to have a threesome?
Yeah,
No.
with a name like that, hey, does it make you want to do a little something? I'm just saying.
I don't know. It depends on how drunk you want to be, I guess. I don't know. I think you got to get really, really drunk if it's the one to do the
not really.
You
not
don't
really.
think so? You don't think so?
Nah,
Well,
no. The wine is right, the time is right.
the wine is right, the time is right, but it ain't no threesome time. Okay, let's
Hey,
just start there. It's not.
hey.
It's never a good time,
May-
especially when you're married. And like
maybe
you said,
you're
black
not strong
men
in your
don't
game. I'm just
cheat.
saying, maybe
So
your game not tight. I'm just
But
saying.
I don't think threesomes is cheating.
No, it
Bam.
ain't cheap.
I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying because it's consent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cheating is secrets.
Yes. Well,
Right.
yeah, there you go. And, but I don't think his wife would be into a threesome. So in that part, we might come. What's the name of the Menage a Trois club that everyone goes to?
The
What?
swinger club.
Corlettas.
Colette.
That
yeah.
Corlet. Oh, you know the name of it, so you've been there before.
No.
I don't know the name. I know where it's at though. It's around the corner from my
Yeah.
old apartment.
Yeah. So
So,
Corlet.
have you been?
I've never been. I didn't. Let me tell you, I wanted to go, but I didn't know what it was. You know, nobody told me. I ain't know nothing about the little pineapples and stuff. Ain't nobody tell me. I was just used to see a lot of people that look like me there. So I'm like,
Yeah.
they was my age. Like they seemed
yeah.
to be they seemed to have been my vibe. So I was like, oh, this is a cool
yeah.
little club. I didn't know they had no club right here.
Yeah, they
And then
got a
somebody was
club.
like, they was like, poke tink tink.
Yeah,
But
and
you
then
don't have
on
to.
top of that, there were a lot of ladies there.
You can watch. You can watch. You don't have. You can watch.
Nah.
You can
Nah.
watch. You don't have to
So
perform.
that means you've been
Because
there.
I feel
watching.
like things
if I
like
go
that,
perform.
people feel the need to touch you.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a toucher. Don't touch me.
Well, and that brings us to our topic tonight because I heard a lot of our ladies of the evening, in the afternoon, in the morning, they kind of have like a little standard date sometimes there at this Corlette. So the guys bring them in and they pawn them off and they sell them. And it's
not
a
really
regular thing
sissy.
that
No,
happens.
not really sell. It's all. Go ahead. Go. Cause go ahead.
Okay, all right. So the topic of
He
tonight,
talking
guys,
like he know.
he know because he's been there. He's been there. Trust me. He's been there. He looked like the type that's been in this club. But our topic tonight, guys, is sex trafficking, and we're going to be talking about what that looks like and how does it affect marginalized communities, guys. And if a lot of you guys don't know what sex trafficking is, I kind of learned today that human trafficking and sex trafficking is two different things.
Yes, it
So
is.
I have Miss Sherry Combs here, who's going to talk to us about that and educate us about what that looks like. If you see that going on, what needs to be done. And I'm going to let her
Nothing.
introduce
Let them
herself.
cook. Let them make their money. But go ahead. Let them cook.
Can I just choke him? Can I
Let 'em
just
cook.
reach to the
I'm just
screen and
saying.
just choke him?
Sir, you don't know.
Because I know one thing right fast. I'm gonna let you go, but at one thing right fast. Most people in New Orleans, most women are hourly workers. Yes or no? Most people in New Orleans are hourly workers. This storm has locked a lot of people out their money. A lot of people been off this Monday. So you know how much work gonna be going on after Friday? How much gonna be selling after Friday from across the board? It gonna be a whole lot of sex being sold to pay their bills after Friday when that snow is gone. Just saying.
Yeah, but that's different than human trafficking, right? That's different than sex trafficking, you know.
It's still sex. But go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
no, no. So
No,
that's so
that's that. I mean, that's survival sex. That's not
Mm-hmm.
human trafficking by legal definition, nor is it what we see throughout the city of New Orleans. Human trafficking consists of force, fraud, and coercion. It's not something that people choose. Even ones that think that, and I was talking to Kecia about this, even the ones that say, think that this was a choice for them. When something is your only option, it's no longer a choice, right? Then we get in a deeper discussion about systemic issues and vulnerable populations and equity, which traffickers prey on vulnerabilities. Just like this winter storm, people, mothers specifically, that may not have the money to cover food on their table, etc., or
Mm-hmm.
their light bill. But survival sex is by no means what is the legal definition of human trafficking. And human trafficking not only consists of sex trafficking, it consists of labor trafficking. And this is our economy is driven by hospitality, hotels and restaurants, etc. So there is a large population that is vulnerable to being forced into labor or being sexually exploited.
mhm.
So, any thoughts on that, Kevin?
I'm come back. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. I thought so. Don't play with my friend Sherry. Don't do it. Don't
I
do
mean,
it.
because I can still. I mean, I
We're
guess
not
what
debating that
I
there are
guess
people who.
what I don't like about it is like a few years ago when that came about, that everybody, no matter what the situation was, I was sex trafficked. When it got time to be arrested, even those who had been doing it for years, all of a sudden they've been sex trafficked. I didn't like that part of it. I'm sorry, I just don't. Like, 'cause some of them have just been doing it as their job for years. Then all of a sudden, it got a badge on it saying sex trafficking. Now everybody getting sex trafficked.
Has this situation affected you personally, where you known someone who was wrongfully accused of sex trafficking and it just
Mm-mm.
wasn't?
No.
So that always baffles me when people make opinions or judgment calls on things that they have no connection to. I'm not saying I do, right? But just knowing that I've worked with victims of human trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
I know that when a person finally says it, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm not going to say that there are never people who takes this opportunity to lie, right?
Okay.
Or
Okay.
to get on the bandwagon. But most victims of human trafficking, like Sherry said, don't even realize sometimes that that is what's happening to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
By definition, they don't know. They have been so convinced that it is their choice and that they are in love with the person who is trafficking them. So
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
when people think that, okay, hey, it should look this way, and it doesn't, they're like, oh, that's not human trafficking. But if you're not the victim or a party to what is going on, how do you know? Right? How do you know? Because the truth is, I've seen it in real life. Like, right? I've seen it and it is hard. I remember the first time I had a friend, and she's famous now, really famous friend, right? And at the time, I was doing my very first play. My first play was written from the stories of real victims of human trafficking. And I remember, well, that's not my first. My first one, Sherry, you was a part of when we did at the school with the little skit and children. Yeah, the little kids. Yeah, that was the first one. But the second one that I actually wrote and made money from was were victims of human trafficking, and each of their stories looked totally different. 100% different. But one of them was one of my friends who, as we were talking, she just kept describing this domestic violence situation. I'm in the domestic violence situation, and that's what was happening to me. But she was only 15.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling me she's in the club and she's selling herself and she's having to bring her money to her pimp, and she's branded. She still has a tattoo to this day, right? And she's branded and all of this. And in her mind, this was her boyfriend. Even though he had other people, she's talking like she the bottom bitch. Period. Right? And I'm listening because I'm knowledgeable of what is going on in human trafficking. I'm listening to her, and she's no longer in human trafficking at the time she's telling me the story, but she's recalling this story because she's a part of my play and she's telling it to me. So I'm listening and I'm saying, "This is your boyfriend?" Mm. I say, "You sure that's not your pimp?" Because she's telling me she got to bring him her money and how he choked her and how he did this and how she was afraid and how she had to ask for permission for this. And that's trafficking, darling. Right? When you, and one, you 15, you can't give consent, period. Like you can't even give consent. That's like first and foremost. You can't even give consent. But had you been an adult, that is still human trafficking. You can't leave. You don't see the money you're making. You're being made to come here whether you wanted to today or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's all trafficking to me. That's the legal definition thereof. When I broke it down to her, a light bulb came on. And she was like, she's smart. She's smart, like college degree. She's a doctor to this day. And she could not, she was like, wait, what? And then she was like, I didn't even realize, because the psychology of human trafficking is to convince them that, one, they want to be a part of this, and two, if they don't, that they don't have a choice, right? Because how else do you keep a person loyal when they're not in your presence?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm not the expert here. Sherry is, but
Yeah.
No, you're the experts. But just to put it into even more perspective, the number one entry into human trafficking is familial trafficking, family members. Right? Your second is intimate partner, and why many victims present as victims of domestic violence. And again, traffickers prey on vulnerability, and I can tell you from serving hundreds, I mean literally hundreds of victims and survivors of trafficking, that vulnerability generally begins in very early childhood, whether that is sexual abuse. Over 90% of the victims we've served have experienced early childhood sexual abuse, whether via a family member, a teacher, some sort of physical abuse, emotional abuse. And those vulnerabilities, when they start that early in life, change, right? They rewire your entire neurological system, because that's the precious time where people are beginning to become who they are and grow into adolescence, and then young adulthood, and then adulthood. When that's been changed, your reason and your trust, your sensory, all of that gets thrown off. That's carried into as they get older. And like any predator, traffickers can smell those vulnerabilities a mile away, and they really do prey on those vulnerabilities. And they don't just come in there and swoop in. There's a whole grooming process. It's what you would see with child sexual abuse when somebody has picked a target, so to speak. It's the same with traffickers. They begin to groom that person, make them feel very special, and all the while they're really isolated them and beginning to kind of do that psychological coercion on them. And so human trafficking may not always involve force, but generally when you're being trafficked, there's some sort of force involved, right? But it usually starts off with somebody the victim thinks they could trust. And why that's so easy for somebody that's been physically abused, sexually abused, because they don't know what healthy relationships are. They've never been shown what a healthy relationship is. They see toxicity as normal by no fault of their own. It's just the way things have been changed. And many times when you experience those early childhood experiences, you're not getting any therapeutic services, any supports, any help. You're keeping that all in.
Yes.
Right. And then comes along, somebody that comes along and has ill intention can totally use all of those things against you. And we have a lot of familiar trafficking here in Louisiana where it's actually the family that's trafficking the child, right? And then I know you say that, but then everybody says they're a trafficking victim, but those children grow into adults. And if they weren't helped when they were children, who's supporting them when they're adults? Because adults don't get the same attention and empathy as a child. That's why if you look up human trafficking, you're going to see this, young kid, and it's generally a white kid with blonde hair and blue eyes, and right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of what it actually looks like, where it can happen to anybody, any age. We've served as young as 11 and as old as 54. If you have a vulnerability, you can be trafficked. And especially if there's been that early childhood experience and nobody has come to support, right, and help you heal, it's very easy for you to get trapped into believing somebody that comes across as trustworthy and doing everything and anything they want you to do before you realize I'm in trouble. And then if you're an adult, who do you reach out to? Because see, all that stuff comes with shame and blame. When you think about human trafficking, you also have to talk about rape because it intersects, right? If I'm doing something that I've been coerced to do, frauded to do, or forced to do, then it becomes rape. And it doesn't matter if that buyer realizes they're raping you every time they walk in that room. Mm-hmm. Because we live in 2024, we shouldn't be buying and selling humans, right? And when I hear people say, well, we want to end human trafficking, if you really want to do that, the impact has to start with all these systems that are archaic, like I was telling Kecia earlier, that we're still working from, so that everybody has equal access to resources, right? And that includes our small children that grow up into adults that say, hey, I was trafficked.
Yeah. And I think social media plays a big part in trafficking in a negative way, and we have a responsibility, I think, on a platform to kind of spread awareness, because you have such a whole lot of negative influencers out there that where they're teaching our youth that, hey, I want to dress with no clothes on. It's okay to be sexualized. Like, social media is actually selling this brand to our younger people. So sometimes if you don't have the support that you need in a household or the foundation where you have family members or someone in your family to support you, you may fall victim to that, because they prey on the homeless. They play, and like Sharon mentioned, and when you're vulnerable, you're more receptive to as I say, the picket white fence that they're selling you, the dream of love. And if you've never been shown love, how do you know what love looks like? So even I, as a child, like, I've experienced a lot in my because I grew up in an urban neighborhood. I had pimps and prostitutes living on a block around the corner. I've been approached by a pimp before. And he tried a couple of times to get me to fall into the trap. But good thing, I was very streetwise. Little did he know. And I always had straight up parents that didn't, my family foundation was street. They were street people. So I was exposed to a lot as a child. So I knew how to recognize, and had developed a strong sense of intuition when I was a younger girl. Like, when I was 9 years old, I was running to the store, making my money, getting cigarettes and beer and hustling already at the age of 9. They were selling me beer and cigarettes. So for some guy to come to me and approach me at 13, and I was well developed, I had breasts, I was a fine little girl. So when they would come and approach me and tell me what they could give to me, in my mind, I was always taught, what you gonna do for me that I can't do for myself? But a lot of people are not taught that as children. And they're not given that foundation. And I want to say the foundation because you have to have a strong male figure in your life that's gonna mentor you. And I've learned some bad things, but as an adult, I've learned to correct those things and have a different way of thinking of how to get different things. But sex, always in my mind, I will rob you before I sell you my body. That was always my mindset. But if you don't have someone to teach you I mean, there's no difference. And as Sharon mentioned earlier, survival, when those survival instincts set in, you may do anything to get a dollar. But it's never been my mindset to give my body to anybody. My body, if you're gonna pay for it, I'm gonna take your money and run. So, but you know,
Yeah,
we
the
all.
thing is, I have seen situations where, especially college students, I think college students are the, people think, okay, hey, I'm sending my kid off to this school and they're going to be fine, right? But then that kid wants a job, and then that kid applies for these jobs and they think, oh, this is perfect. And they go, and then they don't meet with what they think, right? And sometimes that meeting is the last time you see them, right? I mean, people just assume, all of your upbringing, like you were saying, Kecia, going to the store, doing those things, selling cigarettes, the same person, no parental guidance, and sometimes with parental guidance, right? They are still become a victim because of some families teach that, like parents teach
Yeah.
that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
they teach you that you make them pay for it, right? So
Yes.
you grow up
Oh,
in
oh,
that mentality,
oh,
right? And then
thank
when
you.
somebody
Thank you.
offers you
Yes.
that and you think, okay, cool, they're selling the same thing you've been taught. You go into that and then you realize they making the money and not you. Right? You selling it, you doing everything that you
But
knew
they
you
making
grew up.
some money.
They're not. You don't know
They're
that.
not
They don't.
making money.
They don't make nothing. They'll give them a few dollars. But if I personally decided I wanted to sell my vagina for whatever I sold it for, all of it should be my money to make my decision with what I want to do with it. But if I can't make the decision on all of my dollars, I don't care if 2 of them was retained by me. All of them are mine to make the decision on. But when somebody else makes the decision and it's not me, and I don't have a choice in the matter, what is that? I'm asking Kevis, what is that?
That's you being a good woman and taking care of your man.
That's not my man. That's a man who told me to go do it. And now he's taking my money. What is that?
I guess sex trafficking, but I mean, he might be a little pimp, it might be a little pimp in this. But they
Well,
were good. They were. Sex has been selling. The oldest profession is sex. Is selling sex. That's the oldest profession, selling sex. So it's been going on forever since beginning of time. Women have been selling sex. It's the number one product being sold
That's a
for
difference
ages.
between sex work and sex trafficking, right? We got to make the difference. And what's the definition? Coercion, something.
Force, fraud, coercion. Yeah.
There you go.
One
Right.
of those 3 elements, but often all 3 of those elements are involved in sexual exploitation.
It's like I'm not defending Diddy, but it's like the Diddy thing. They knew what they was going for, but all of a sudden when it became the right thing to do to make move, whatever, oh, well, this would happen to me. I'm saying some of them did get messed over, but not everybody at the party got messed over. Like
No,
some
I
people
don't.
went there
I
just
don't
to
think so
party.
too. I think that that's two different things, right? I'm not. I don't know.
But no,
I haven't been
he's
following.
down for he's charged with sex trafficking too. He's charged with sex trafficking, so there's part of his charge is sex trafficking. Like I'm saying,
I'm gonna say this. I'm always reluctant to make judgment over things that I don't know about. If they're making that claim, there's things that you don't know about the case, right? Sometimes we see the situation with Cassie and we think that's the only situation, right? But sometimes there's other things. I remember I was a part of a case in Meek, Louisiana, and it was a millionaire pastor, and he tried to rape my friend. So we went to the police station and we filed charges because of that. When they got to the house, they found a 16-year-old girl in his apartment, right? And so while the rape was the thing that we was trying to get, there were other crimes that was uncovered when they got into the house, right? So I can guarantee you in some of those videos, if they're doing sex trafficking, they found stuff. We gotta not rush. I'm not saying, hey, they are probably crucifying him when there's others who've done worse crimes. They probably should get them too. But I am a stickler of people paying for the crimes that they committed, right?
Yes.
One thing I know about the feds, for the most part, when they got you, they studied that thing to get you.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just rush to a decision to get you.
So, but my question for Kevin is, I want to
what?
know, okay,
What?
I mean, your thoughts. What would
Okay.
sex trafficking look like to you? What does that look like to you?
Under 16, being abused, making to do it. If I'm sorry, at a certain age, if you're still doing it, I can't call it on that. I understand some people are getting beat to do it, then yes, but at a certain point in time, I guess I'm just being so free in life that you make your decisions at a certain make your decisions at a certain time. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean,
Have
I
you
know some
ever
people.
so what about the women that wash up dead, right? That's over 20, over 16.
What's up, dead from being killed by who though?
They're
I'm just saying.
pimps.
So we have missing women, right?
Right,
Missing
right, right.
women who were possible victims of sex trafficking, right? And we
Right.
learned that at some point maybe they tried to escape, maybe
Okay.
they were no more useful, right? Sometimes maybe they got pregnant and they were injured in the process, so they were no more useful, right? And so they were killed, right?
Okay.
And they're over 16, they 30,
Right, right.
right? So I just think that we have to, we have to be mindful that if I have been made to sell myself at whatever age, right? Say it starts when I'm 16 and then now I'm 25 and this is now my lifestyle and this is all I know. At some point it becomes the psychology of it, right? I've been made to think that this is all I can do. Now I'm afraid of what else is out there because whatever he has said over time, he's probably proven it to me, right? He's probably beat somebody in front of me to show me that he meant business. Maybe another girl who was feeling like I'm feeling, didn't come back, right? And we know what happened to her, but we ain't gonna say nothing because we scared that that's gonna happen to me. So he may have never touched me. He may never beat me, but he beat everybody else around me. Am I to think then I'm free to leave because now I'm 30?
No.
And the number one reason that I hear why people won't exit, besides fear safety, is being judged.
Yep.
They live a
Judged by
life
whom?
But
well, by
people like
people
me,
like
Kebis.
Kevin.
Yeah.
I love sex workers. Me,
Yeah.
I
But
got no judgment at all. Make your money. Make your
But
money. I got nothing. Nah,
but
I don't
but
judge.
by
Make your
being
money.
judged, because it goes back to what I say, if and what piggyback up is what Demetrius just said. Like, if this is all I know, this is all I know, this is my normal,
Right.
right? And because I turn a certain age, that shouldn't matter. Like, that shouldn't matter. Like, a victim is a victim, and so in Louisiana we're phenomenal because across the country most states have it 18 and under. In Louisiana it's 21 and under. You can't, right?
Can't
You
what?
don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. 21 and under in the state of
Yep.
Louisiana, this
Age
law
of
was
consent.
passed.
That
And
what? Hold on.
so,
What's the law? Wait.
so in most states, right, that they
Okay.
focus just on juveniles, right? They focus on juveniles, and so people never really see again that adult victim. Um, and so here in Louisiana, though, we have had some great legislation, a lot of advocacy. Many survivors have gone to the state capitol and spoke. And so the law here in Louisiana is 21 and under, and which is great because then you can start to arrest and prosecute the right people, which is the trafficker. And so people can begin to heal. But if we just concentrate on a victim being a child, the victims that are adults, whether it started in childhood or not, will never get the opportunity to heal and be connected to resources like everybody else. If it's force, if it's fraud, it's coercion, it's trafficking, right?
Mhm.
We're not talking about survival sex. We're talking about being forced into it. We're not talking about a legitimate boyfriend saying, we need the light bill paid. We're talking about somebody that has intentionally gone out, groomed this person based off of their vulnerabilities, and said, I need you to do this. And if you don't, this is what's going to happen. And we have no room in our society for that type of nonsense or for those type of people. We just don't.
The
We
thing
live in
is,
an environment where people are exposed. I'm sorry, Demetrius.
no, go ahead. I'm
I'll
sorry.
wrap
I
it up.
thought you were
We
done.
live, in communities from, some of our kids from day one are experiencing, violence and predatory behavior and not being able to live in two family households or live in, being raised with another family member, or because we have the highest incarceration rate and a whole disruption of childhood goes on here in our city. And then we don't understand how secondary trauma can occur. And when we have these discussions, we got to make sure we're not unconsciously blaming the victim. We got to put the blame on the right people.
Mhm.
That's the ones buying them, and that's the ones selling.
Yes. Yes.
The other thing too that I look at is that in everything, right? What I have found as an advocate, and the reason why I chose to be an advocate for children who've been abused, and that means that also including in commercial sexual exploitation of children, which is still human trafficking, right? Or sex trafficking of children, is because what I have seen is the re-victimization when they come for services or when they finally decide to say, this has happened to me. Or the fact that they're criminalized for whatever act they got caught in, right? That's to me ludicrous. And the person who sold them or the person who made them goes scot-free.
Mm-hmm.
Goes scot-free. Like the young lady, I think she was tried as an adult. She was only 15, 16 years old when she killed the man who was raping her. She was a human traffic victim. She went to prison for killing her. And if she didn't get pardoned by the presidents, then she would have still been in jail.
Mm-hmm.
For in the trafficker, he out.
Stop me preying on someone else.
No, I thought she killed the traffic. I remember that. I thought she killed the one who was
No, she
trafficking her.
killed the guy who she was
Her John.
the
I thought
John.
she killed the. Oh, she killed the. I thought she killed the. I thought she had killed the actual pimp though. She didn't kill the pimp. Oh, I thought she had killed the pimp. Okay, all right. 'Cause I remember that story. I thought she had killed the pimp, though. All right.
But there's more than one story. But this particular story, she only killed the John. She killed the
Okay.
John, right?
All right.
Um, the trafficker went free. He free. And that's most cases. So a lot of times we as a society, this judgment thing that we do unsubconsciously or bias or lack of understanding of it, whatever it is, it makes people stay in it. It makes them afraid to come forward because we judge and we make them feel, and we don't help them. Let's just be clear. Now, we have advocates, and I'm gonna tell you something. Sherry is one of those advocates, man. I'm gonna tell you, her heart in this thing. She do it. She don't do it for the paycheck. I can guarantee you, she don't do it for the paycheck. Sherry need a raise. I don't. Her bosses, if y'all on here, she need a raise.
Everyone that covered in house needs a raise.
But listen, because I've seen and I've talked to her, and I know she would be off and would leave to go be with a person coming in who's been trafficked because they're afraid, right? And because they're having an issue with acclimating, and services here don't help. I've seen it. I've seen the services. I've seen the services go hard on the victim and do nothing to the perpetrator. Right here in Louisiana, in Orleans and in Jefferson. Do nothing. It takes for you to go to the media, to get the media involved for them to even start a prosecution. So when we talk about people not coming forward and it's being just regular, no, it's not regular. People are really hurting. People are really in this thing and are being forced. I've seen beat up people. I've seen women be afraid to talk to me, shaking, peeing on themselves because they are scared to death that their conversation with me is going to get them killed.
Yeah. So Mary is asking, how do we educate ourselves and to identify the signs and provide assistance? Because, she's working in a hospital setting. So.
Oh, definitely, Mary. There's so much education. I'm gonna let Sherry answer it because I know there are services that will come and do those things because you guys are key. You airlines, man, y'all be catching the people.
Yeah, so there's a lot of service providers out there and law enforcement too that will come in and do trainings on human trafficking, especially in the hospitals, because like over 70%, I believe it is, when they did this study, over 70% of victims had encountered an emergency room doctor at some point while they were being trafficked. The First Foundation has a really good training on and on badge buddies, which have like little indicators on it that you can wear along with your ID card in the hospital. And they also do statewide trainings. But the signs, people always ask, what are the signs? But I don't think they're so black and white definitive, right? Because what looks like trafficking can wind up being domestic violence, or it could just be an unhealthy relationship, or you could miss it altogether. I think I always say we always have great instinct, right? And if you think something is wrong, something is probably wrong. And asking somebody, how can I help? It is really like simple, to the point. I don't think it's important for people to disclose right away as much as it is to get them away from somebody that's possibly harming them and getting them connected to the right services they need, whether that's safe shelter, food, whatever they need. But if you did see somebody that was in an immediate emergency, in some sort of danger, then you would call law enforcement. You wouldn't interject. You have to remember that sometimes, as Demetrius was saying, when we go out of our way to interact with somebody who we think is trafficking, you can actually get that person in trouble. It's always important to separate that victim or just ensure that they're by themselves before you even ask, how can I help you? If they have, especially when they go into hospitals, they generally go in either with the traffic, or there may be that other person, the recruiter or one of the other people that might be being trafficked, there to monitor everything they're saying. They could even go in alone and just have their phones on, and somebody on the other line is listening, right? And there are consequences to that. So separating people when you think there's a problem, whether you make the excuse, oh, we have to do an exam, so you have to step out for a minute. It's just our protocol, and asking that person, is there anything I can do to help you? You know, not stigmatizing them right away and saying, hey, are you a trafficking victim? But more so, what can I do to help? What resources do you need? Do you need a safe place to stay? Those are important conversations, because most people that disclose do so after you've built some sort of relationship rapport with them.
Mhm. Absolutely. There also, I know I am a national facilitator for Darkness to Light. Darkness to Light has a division in it that has some human trafficking in it. Um, I am willing to do that, and educate people on how to recognize it based on that. That is more focused on children, though, right? It's not really focused on adults. I did a human trafficking facilitator, teach the trainer class before, but that was so many years ago. I've been out the field. Sherry been trying to pull me back in and trying to get me back, and been like, "Come on, come on, come on!" And that is definitely my heart, right? My heart is to see people free, free to live the lives that they envisioned when they were children, right? And people don't live those lives because things have happened, right? Lives, things really, life has been lifing, like we say, and unfortunately, um, we as a society hasn't caught up to recognizing and being there.
I
Um,
mean,
but neither does our community. Neither does our law enforcement either, though. But
but
what you,
America in general has a problem with mental health, helping people out with mental health nowadays.
you're
It's across the
absolutely
board.
correct.
Mental health is a problem across the board.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, Kevis, is I think we exclude men, right? Like, I think in this whole conversation we've been focused on women, 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 but we see a huge human trafficking male population, right? Like, it's not just a female issue. It's just that males don't disclose for, because I mean, if you think judge women are judged, oh hell, shit, like when
Oh
it
no,
comes
I
to
know that.
men, it's worse.
Oh yeah, when you tell a woman, man, tell anybody something happened to them, it's like, oh, what? That's
It's
nothing.
worse. Yes.
Yeah, believe me,
And
it's
I tell
yeah.
you, there was a study done at the Covenant House. What was that lady's name? She was at Loyola University. I forgot her name. I did the training. She did the teach the trainer class. She
Dr.
did a,
Laura Murphy.
yes, she did a study on the women and the men and all the different types of trafficking, and just asking them, "Hey, were you trafficked?" They all said no. Like, most of them said no. But when they began to ask different types of questions, were you ever forced to do this? Did you ever feel the need to do? Did somebody, like, things like that? And then they found that almost 90% of the kids that come through Covenant House had some type of trafficking history, whether it was drug trafficking, labor trafficking, or sex trafficking, right here in New Orleans in the Covenant House.
Well, say
Those
like
kids ain't homeless for no reason.
yeah, and that's the population they tend to prey on, the homeless people. But is it
Absolutely. But the
like,
thing is, they are trafficked before they ever come to Covenant House.
mm-hmm,
Right? So they were, sometimes they're not homeless. Sometimes, like she said, familial. Y'all, I'm telling you, these families ain't right. These families are families forcing these children, forcing these adults, for whatever, they're forcing these
mm-hmm,
people into servitude to pay their bills. When, parents force their daughters or children into servitude to get drugs,
yes,
to get what, I mean, they sell them.
And not to talk about how some are kidnapped, because I listen to the stories in the IOP groups how they have suffered trauma. Like if someone told their story today how he moved to Atlanta, he was homeless, he fell vulnerable to sex traffickers. They kidnapped him. He said they followed him for a little while from the shelter, and then they kidnapped him. He had a dog. They kidnapped him, and he got out. He said when he finally got away from him, from that life, he was even more messed up than what he was before, because he had already suffered from childhood trauma because he was molested as a child up until almost, well, a teen, and then he left home trying to escape that lifestyle, and then he runs into someone who kidnaps him and brings him and basically forcing him to have sex to pay, forcing him into that lifestyle. So everybody that does that, no, they're not willfully brought into that lifestyle. And then so many of our kids are introduced to that from family members, like Sherry said, church members. It could be people in your church,
the
pastor himself. So you just never know. You, like they say, they always what the wolf in the sheep's clothing.
Absolutely.
So
and other traffickers use like drugs that, to get people, addicted to certain drugs so that they'll do what they want them to do. We see that a lot. And so that's another barrier though to being recovered or even being connected to resources is, because again, they're often judged as, oh, they're just an addict, or, they out there, they want to do that. And that's not necessarily true. You don't know how to, you never walked in somebody's shoes. You don't know if a year before that they were this, successful person thriving, and came along this person who introduced them to crack cocaine, and it spiraled downhill from there.
In the 90s, they'll find a pretty girl and put on something and just fit them. Yeah, that was
and that's trafficking, Kevis. That's trafficking.
Tell them, Sherry, get them together.
Yes.
Well, listen, I have so many stories. I know Sherry does too. I mean, I just couldn't imagine doing it full time like you, Sherry. I don't know. I think at some point my heart would break and I would give up on the system. Right? Like the system is a problem. It is a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Where's the money? Nobody want to spend the money to really fix the problem. They'll put a Band-Aid on.
Well, you're not gonna spend the money because you're the problem. Like, I mean, you listen. Sometimes it is the politicians. They are some of the biggest traffickers, man. Let me tell you, Lord, y'all don't know. Let me tell you, this trafficking thing. When y'all see these movies and y'all see where there's a whole human trafficking ring where they're selling kids and or whatever, that stuff is based on real life stories, right? And so when you see that, hey, the judge he's sleeping with the children, and listen, I'm telling y'all, this stuff is real in real life. I mean,
look, and you bring that up, the movie Tyler Perry has on Netflix
I hate Tyler Perry movies
about these two young ladies, and they were brought into the sex trafficking thing as teenagers, and he told, they were telling them that if they didn't do the job, they were going to go to jail. They didn't have a choice. It was 3 of them.
I do remember that movie. What was that? That's something recently, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the movie.
I remember that.
And that goes back to vulnerable populations. So I can tell you at Covenant House, 80% of our victims and survivors of trafficking are African American youth. 40% of trafficking victims that we serve identifies LGBTQ. And then we have undocumented migrants, foreign nationals. And it is very easy when it comes to undocumented individuals to get them to do what you want them to do, whether that's forced labor or sex trafficking, because all they have to say is, I'm going to call ICE, or I'm going to harm your family back in your country, because some of these have ties internationally. And so when you have that kind of threat over your weighing on you over your shoulder, you're liable to do whatever. We had a client that was, because we take any age on an emergency basis, Hispanic male in the 30s, and that came from, I won't say the country, but another country, for a better life, left their child back in their country, went to a farming field out in rural Louisiana, and him and other Hispanic males were out there, and they were trafficked, forced into labor. We think, well, so they didn't get paid, but no, these individuals were sleeping in a trailer without electricity. They were forced to work 20 hours a day. They only got water if they did so much work. They often didn't get fed. When they asked about pay, they were hit, things of that nature. So, yes. And so
Damn.
these things happen, and it can, like, that's why I emphasize all the time, it can happen to anybody, because the threat, the verbal threat, can sometimes be have more power than the physical force.
And what you don't know, like a lot of times we don't know, they're coming from one country to this country. They don't know the laws. They don't know what is legal, what isn't legal, and they go with it. We'll go with it based on what's told to them. And then when I don't know, then I am victim and I'm vulnerable, right? Anything can cause a vulnerability. I think the thing is, we look at things and we say, okay, hey, I'm not vulnerable, but then there are people just like you that's been trafficked, right? I mean, the truth is, we all have something that makes us vulnerable, right? And all they need to do is learn that thing that makes you vulnerable. I mean, I know it's tough. It's tough with situations, but to take all of these people and talk about kids, right, going through this situation, and then they're young adults, they're going through this situation, and now they are middle-aged adults, and this is all they've known. This is all they've known. And now you say to this person, well, why are you still in human trafficking? Why are you ain't left yet?
I mean, if you say that part, now that part I understand, because that's all they know. So I mean, I get that that's all they know. So what else can they do? Because that's all they know.
Not only that,
So
it's embedded, right? It's embedded in you to be someone's victim. You don't know how to be not a victim. You don't know how to have power and take your voice back and your life back, and to make a decision that is yours, because nothing you've done thus far has been your decision. You, in your mind, life is not supposed to be your decision. Who telling you that? It ain't like traffickers allowing you to go and be around people who can pull life into you. It ain't like that. Yeah, they're not exposing you to that type of thing to make you get a brain and be able to make a decision on your own. Like, I mean, that is why it is important for us, when we are not knowledgeable, to not make a decision or an opinion about something we know not about.
Exactly.
Because when we don't know about it, we really and truly don't understand. and I look, I'm picking on you, Kevis, but I'm not.
But there are a lot of people out there that
in their thought processes on how, which is why I was happy to have you with your antagonist views, because you represent people who really feel like this.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can't have a conversation with them, but we're gonna have it with you for them. Right. We're gonna let them see, because there's a human side to trafficking. And these people are hurting, right? And they're not just doing this because they want to. If I want to sell my vagina and I don't have nobody holding me up my head, and that's what I want to do, fine, that's sex work.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not human trafficking, right? But if somebody else is making me do something that I don't want to do, even if I wanted to do it today, but I don't want to do it tomorrow, and then I'm forced to do it because somebody told me I had to.
You gotta make the quota. Gotta make the quota.
If I have a quota that's not mine,
Yes, because my quota might be
right?
2 men
If
a
I
day.
have a quota, that's not mine.
It's not mine, it's there. So when you see
Well,
those
and then
young
the
ladies walking
consequence
around,
when you don't make that quota, the consequence.
yeah,
And I've heard of some extremely violent things happen to them when they do not make the quota that they were
Mhm.
asked to make.
To me. Absolutely.
I always say there's three ways to get out of trafficking, and A, that's via arrest, right? Being recovered by law enforcement as sting, jail, or death.
yeah. And that those are the only ways out, and neither of them sound like a choice of
Yeah,
the victim because they are actually victims.
correct.
Mm.
And let me tell y'all something, and we need to really pray for our advocates, our people who are in, because there, you, any person who encounters or interacts with victims of human trafficking are then also at risk. They are. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen Miss. I don't know if y'all know about Diane Amos. I know you do, Sherry. Um, they put their lives in danger to go in and act with victims.
Hmm.
People know about them. People know what they do, right? And so they're a constant threat. Sherry's in. You think people want her helping them?
Hmm.
I'll tell you a quick story. Went out to
Hmm.
talk with the, we do a lot of outreach wherever we think a track is or a track is building, um,
Where
and
they at?
we did a lot of outreach on Chef until
Oh,
um, one day there it was me and two other team members, and we actually got chased up onto the interstate by the pimp
oh
because
shit.
you're cutting off
Their supply.
their money. That's business to them. But it's not the only time where there's been like maybe a threat or a safety concern. But that's why I always say, when we do outreach, we try really hard to make sure that individuals by themselves, um, and that we're just offering like immediate needs like food cards or our business card, things like that. We know that food is often like a punishment for many victims. And so we're out
Deny
there
them food?
offering, well, for days, yes,
Damn.
for
Yes.
days. They'll keep them,
Sometimes I got they
they'll
gotta
keep
they
them
gotta
up for
have
days.
sex and eat. Yes. Okay.
Mhm. And don't talk about the mothers that are trafficked, what they do with the children, and how that mom may not know for 2, 3 days where her child is because it's being housed at another location while they're forced to work the streets. So it's a bigger issue than a lot of people realize. And the fact that it happens here in New Orleans every single day, not just during large events, every single day, somebody is being trafficked in our city.
Oh, that
Um,
Super Bowl coming. Gonna be a whole. Oh, damn. Super Bowl coming soon.
Super Bowl is a big deal.
Yeah.
I like
Oh,
since I've been on this job, I had to go and rescue a family and her children, a woman and her children from a human trafficking situation. And so listen, even though I'm not publicly in the field anymore, I still do the work. And
Hmm.
because that's my field, I was able to successfully go and get them out of there, right? And in knowing the process and how to effectively get it done and safely get it done. But it didn't mean that I was not afraid going into it because you don't know the reaction. You do
You
not know
know,
what you're walking into.
and
and imagine
NOPD
the
is not with
trauma.
you. NOPD is
Imagine the
not with
trauma. Oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Sherry, but I'm just making a point. NOPD is not with any of us when we're going out into
Oh
these
no,
dangerous
they
cities.
went with me. Let me
They
tell you
were with,
something.
okay.
oh, they
Oh
never
yeah.
were with me when I worked
Mhm.
for the juvenile justice system. I had to
Listen,
go out by myself and do these interviews.
the first
So
thing I'm going to do is me and the family, we're going to the police station. And you're going to meet me at the house where we know these children are, and we're going to go get them. That's what we're going to do. Now, they were rude as hell when we got to the police. The police is awful. But the police officers that actually met us there were amazing. The ones at the station, bullshit.
No,
I
they're
call bullshit.
probably they're more trained now and they're more aware of what's
This
going
was
on
this
now.
year. This was in
This,
2024, girl. This was a
oh
couple
no, this
months
was
ago.
in 20, maybe 20, I want
Girl,
to
the people
say
rude as hell.
2010, 20, 2009,
Cause they
2010.
think like
I
me.
mean,
They
child.
out there, they think like me. I understand. I'm a male. I understand their feelings on certain, but
Let
I
me just say
understand
this
now
though.
what y'all saying now. I
I
understand.
want to
I
say
get
this
it.
though. Law enforcement has come a long way.
They
Mhm.
have.
They have they have like allowed training. They're delivering training. It's taken a while because they probably did used to think like chemists. We hope we changed his mind. Uh,
Yes.
Petito, petito.
but but they've come a long way, and I like to think like the majority of law enforcement that I work
Right.
with are very victim centered.
Hmm. The ones that met us out at the house, they were amazing. The ones that were at the office, though, they were really mean. They were really, really mean.
They didn't
And
get the training.
they were mean. Now, one of the guys who was at the office was one of them who met us out there. When he got out there, he apologized.
Okay.
He did. He apologized. But I don't know what they was on in the office. Like in the office, I think they're just geared to be angry. Like I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know what happened. But when they got out
Well,
there and
it's
they
that
met us,
setting. It's that dominant
but when they met
setting.
us at the
Yeah,
house
yeah.
to get the kids, they were absolutely amazing. There was like the guy got out there, he did his little, lie and are you taking my kids and this and whatever.
So
And
were they his kids?
one of them,
Okay.
imagine doing it full time like you share it. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But when they got out there, yeah. So one of them was his, but at the end of the day, the kids were being used as a pawn.
Okay.
She stopped. You can't get your kids. I need you to make me some money.
Okay.
You're not making me no money. You get no kids. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And imagine what those kids are experiencing in a household like that, or even moms that are have these boyfriends, and their children are put somewhere else for several days. Children can't speak, like a baby can't speak, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old to tell you if something happened to them, and
Nah, that part. Yeah.
you see that sometimes in the mothers that we serve their children, you know, when we see like speech impediments or slow to kind of to grow at a normal rate, all of that's due to trauma and trauma they're being exposed to or possibly experiencing that they just can't communicate to people.
Absolutely.
So you have all these secondary victims.
I think there's so much to know about the effects of abuse, trafficking, all of it, and how it shows up in people, period. I think Keisha, you did a thing on trauma in relationships. We did that
Yeah.
last week. And I
Hmm.
think all of it just plays, period. Like we are a society that has experienced trauma. And the other thing that I want to say, and I'm glad that Sherry is on here, because I think the Black community thinks that it is exclusive to us. And what I have learned through human trafficking and just child abuse, period, that's everybody. That's everybody. I remember we used to think that what happens in the house stays in the house. We thought that was a Black thing. Mm-mm. It is not, y'all. It's not.
No,
It
it's
really is not. I listened to a story of a Miss America who is not Black. Where guess what happened? Guess what the motto was in her house? What happens in my house stays in my house. It's not a Black thing. You know what I heard in Indian families and in Mexican families? What happens in our community stays in our community. And the problem with that is if everybody keeps all the bad stuff in the community, how do we fix it?
That was a good that's a good takeaway going into it because we have it's 8:05 now.
Okay.
So I think that was a good way to kind of set up. Any last words you want to say, Sherry?
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been fun, but I'm glad that Kevis might have a change of heart because that's so important. He was very confident coming in here and he knew what he was talking about.
Yes.
Well, I know some pimps out there who
Now has
disagree.
clarity.
They got some pimps out there that disagree. We need some pimps on here next time.
Well, and then people are texting me. They're trying to comment. I don't know what happened. There's a little glitch in the system. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how Mary can comment.
Yeah, she's on here.
Because she's on here. So I don't know. It's saying that I limited the something. I didn't do anything. I promise y'all. So I have to fix that because I know some people out there had some stuff to say, and you'll get your opportunity. But what I want to say is, I want some of you guys to start chiming in on the conversations that we're having because Kevin is like we beating him up on here, and I know y'all have similar thought processes as he does. Don't be afraid. We're not going to hurt you guys. We're not going to beat you down, but we will educate you here. And that's the purpose of this platform, is to educate you guys on these topics. And we're going to be discussing things like this more. We may circle around because I don't think we've touched everything that we needed to touch as far as with trauma, how that affects the households, relationships, and how it leads somehow to people are more vulnerable to sex trafficking and human trafficking when we when we experience trauma. And as Demetrius stated, in our African American families, it is just a cultural thing that what goes on here stays here. And at one time, we believed that the church was supposed to house all our problems, or everything, that God houses everything. But we have to talk about these things. And here we're going to talk about those things. We're going to put these topics on the table. We're going to talk about it. And if you have any questions or input or what have you, please feel free. We want your feedback. We want to make this a more engaging process because we want to know what y'all thinking out there. And until next Wednesday, we'll be back next Wednesday with something more interesting and more traumatizing to y'all asses out there.
Say, I'm tired of the snow. I'm tired of the snow. Tell the snow go away. Run the snow away. That snow getting on my nerves.
Hopefully y'all enjoy the snowing. I'm feeling a little cabin fever right now. I need to get out the house. But
I just want pizza.
I just want some Popeyes, really, and I can eat Popeyes every day. But join me next Wednesday on KPR Productions LLC. You can tune in on Facebook and Instagram. You can also see me on Kecia R on my personal Facebook page. Also, you can kind of tune in now. I'm streaming live on YouTube at KReed2B. So every Wednesday at 7:00. Sometimes we do go a little over, y'all, because it gets a little interesting. And I'll see y'all then. Don't forget to purchase this Menage a Trois. Let's gang up and solve some of these issues. That's why I broke out the Menage a Trois, because we need to come together in groups to tackle these issues that we have in our communities. Thank you, Sherry, for coming. You're welcome to come anytime. I'm educated, and we need to kind of talk about this a little more. So we'll circle back on this and dive a little deeper in, and hopefully we can have someone to come on and speak about their experience next time. And with that being said, love y'all. Deuces. See y'all next week. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.